There is no way of not sharply increasing property taxes to replace more than $300 million in missing revenue. This will be the greatest financial challenge that this city, or any other American city for that matter, has faced in our lifetimes.
That is Mayor John Cooper earlier today. The sharp increase he was talking about, it's a 32% property tax increase proposal. And again, as I've said, a home worth $300,000 under this proposal would pay $750 more in taxes this year. And again, the mayor calling this a crisis budget because of the coronavirus shutdown. Now, let's go to the phones. We're happy to have with us Pat Nolan. Pat, thank you for being here. In the studio, not via Zoom. So there's none of that awkward sort of delay. So I'm just glad you're here. Let's go to Joe. Hello, Joe?
Yep, I'm right here.
Go right ahead.
Okay, so about raising it over 30%, the property taxes, obviously the businesses are learning right now that people can work from home, and there might be some closures like in the business buildings. In other words, if I can have my people work from home, I don't need that building. And so I don't need them there. I can have them work from home. And people are figuring this out. And also, I don't know if the mayor can maybe put a nickel tax on gas. Like, can we put like, right now gas prices are way low. So if we could put a nickel tax on gas, just a gallon of gas, then maybe we can benefit from that in Davidson County. And also, and I'd hate to say it, but a 1% increase in sales, in the sales tax. I think what this does by raising property taxes by 30% is it really hurts the middle class more than anybody else. And if he can reduce that maybe to 20%, he won't hurt us as badly. But if he could figure it out between maybe a gas tax or a sales tax, because businesses, if you raise their taxes 30%, or they don't need the buildings anymore. And I just want your comments on that.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that, Joe. Joe's asking Pat about other taxes. You mentioned a little bit about a sales tax, but revisit that, and also a gas tax. I don't think we can do that, but what about that?
Whatever taxes Metro can put out, local government, they have to get authorization from the state to do it. The state does have a gas tax, and Metro gets a share of that, but Metro does not have its own share of a gas tax. If the legislature approved that, then depending on how the legislature approved it, whether it had to be ratified by our local council or whether it had to be ratified by some kind of referendum by voters, I don't know, but we'd have to have state action for us to have a local option gas tax. We can do another ½ cent on the local option sales tax. It is capped to a certain amount, and we're about a ½ cent less than that. I mentioned before that the last time the sales tax was increased in Davidson County on the local level, it was done 40 years ago, and it was done as a way of rolling back part of a property tax. So there is some precedent for that, although it's a kind of old precedent, 40 years ago. But so far the mayor has not shown any interest in doing that, although he did mention some interest in generally raising sales tax while he was running for mayor last year. But of course, the situation budget-wise was completely different. And part of raising the sales tax this year, I don't know how much money you estimate you'd get out of it. First of all, you'd start it well into the fiscal year, and secondly, by the time you start it, will businesses be open? Will sales tax being collected? Because we haven't seen these numbers yet, but when the local option numbers come in for what we've collected, actually for the months of the half a month of March and the month of April, we won't see those till almost into the summer. We'll be shocked at how little money was collected in the April sales tax, just simply because there weren't any people out here buying and selling goods. Now, there may have been some increase in the part of it that came in from groceries, but a lot of the retail stuff and restaurants and stuff just gone.
It's interesting what Joe's saying. We're learning that people can work from home. There's been a belief, I think, on the part of a lot of people that once this shutdown, quarantine is over, that everything will come back pretty quickly. And hopefully that's the case. But it does beg the question, what will change? And will businesses not operate in the same way and maybe not need buildings they needed before? It's an interesting question. What will change when we do put this behind us? Will we come back to the same level of revenue that we had going in, and that's an unknown. So fascinating. Let's go to Sherry. Let's go to Sherry on line 2. Hello, Sherry.
Yes.
What's on your mind?
Okay. I was wondering, like other one of mine around here, we on disability and SSI. Will we receive a stimulus check?
So you're on disability and you're wondering if you're getting a stimulus check.
Yes.
Okay, that's from the federal government. I believe so, but that's not Metro. So this is, what we're talking about is Metro. Now for Sherry, she would have her property tax levels frozen, hopefully, right, Pat?
Well, there is a frozen, there's a program to do that, but it's generally for people below a certain income limit, and also for disability, folks with disabilities, and also I believe for disabled veterans. If I would suggest, if you're interested in doing that and getting into that program, contact the Metro Trustee's office. They can get you into what kind of paperwork you have to fill out to get into it. It does allow for a freeze for property taxes, but again, it's not for everybody. It's for people in certain low incomes and for seniors of a low income, and also for disabled. I think particularly as a part of it also for disabled veterans.
This is not the year that you want to ignore that. So yes, go to the trustee's office if you are eligible. Sherry, I hope you're able to get that.
If you've ever thought about doing it, this is the year you need to at least explore it and see if it works for you.
No doubt. Let's go to Lucy. Hello, Lucy.
Hey, y'all. Well, I've got a comment and a couple of quick questions. My comment is, you know, at least a squirrel knows to put a nut away and a dog knows to bury a bone. I agree with the mayor in what I call the rainy day fund, but it's called the reserve fund, about raising that and keep your hands off of it and quit partying with it, you know, so to speak. But Mr. Hall, you said something to the effect that we're a $470 million shortfall in revenue. Is that the city merchants and business people, or is that the actual tax that we collected? I guess I have 3 questions. And the other thing is, Amazon, you see Amazon trucks and FedEx trucks everywhere. Are we collecting tax locally off of that stuff? Did they ever get that figured out? And the last question is, with this increase, if I took my value of my property that they base my property tax on from last year's bill, how can I figure out roughly what type of increase I'm going to have next year? I'm going to hang up and listen to y'all offline. Thank you.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. Take last year's tax bill. How could you calculate what it might be if this were to pass? Would it be as simple as add 32% to it?
If you on that bill, you will find out what your property is appraised at, and that's the fair market value of it. The tax then goes according to the rate, but also the actual appraised value goes down to 25% of that. Residential property in Tennessee is assessed at 25% of value. Commercial property is assessed at 40%. So take 25% of your fair market value, then take the rate and basically add another $1 in there, and that's $100 per. That's $100 for every. That's $1 for every $100 I think of assessed value. So that'll give you some idea of what it was. Give you some. If you look at what you've got right now, just to go back to what Ben was talking about before, it goes from Ben. What are those numbers for the increase on the 35? On the,
oh yeah. Okay. So on a $300,000 house.
Yeah.
It would be $750 more.
And the actual numbers, it went from $2,366 right now on a $300,000 house to a $3,116 increase. So that's about a $750 increase, and so that will give you some idea, at least for what it is for people that are in a $300,000 house. I will tell you one other thing, and this is looking into not this coming year, but the year after. We're in a cycle where we're going to have a reappraisal of property again. They'll start late this year and then go into next year. And when the council comes to set the property tax rate in 2021, this time in 2021, a year from now, they'll have to figure out what to do about the rate, because generally speaking, because we've had such a great increase in our property values over the last couple of years, they've had to cut the rate back That doesn't mean your property tax goes back. If your taxes have gone up, if your values have gone up more than they have across the city, then you may actually see an increase from that. But in some cases, if your property didn't appraise or didn't go up as much as it did in other parts of town, you might actually see a decrease a little bit. This happened a couple of years ago, and people were quite upset about it. It's also when the rate was set at $315, which was the lowest property tax rate in the history of Metro. And some people thought they set it too low, were more interested in setting it as low as possible and not on exactly how much money they needed when they reset it and lowered it, setting it to what they could actually make the city work. And somebody mentioned earlier, I mean, Metro has been like a lot of people. They've kind of lived off their credit card, and they've pushed it right up until the line. And they were having some problems with it last year. We talked about that earlier with the $40 million shortfall in the budget the council allowed to go into effect. Well, this time they've gotten caught big time because nobody ever anticipated something to happen like the loss. And that $472 million is largely the loss to Metro in revenue. That's not how much merchants have lost or anything like that. That's how much money Metro lost in revenue. And a lot of that sales tax, but some of it's business tax, some of it's beer taxes and things like that they also collect, particularly I suppose from some of the bars and other places like that.
That $470 million, Lucy, is over 16 months. So it's not just 12 months, but it's a projection over 16 months.
But it's almost $500 million.
So it's an astounding amount of money, and that's what Metro is having to make up. I mean, we were struggling to make up $40 million in this year's budget, and now we're coming in with this. So this is just
difficult.
Very difficult. Let's go to Patrice. Hello, Patrice. Are you there, Patrice? I may come back to Patrice. We'll go to Pat. Hello, Pat.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
All right. I just have a suggestion that I would like to put out there. I know in other counties this is done. They collect a $10 fee with every electric meter, and the fee is paid to along with your electric bill when the electric department collects that money, and it's given to the county for revenue. And it would make more sense because in this sense, all individuals in Davidson County would be helping to pay the revenues instead of just the property owners.
All right, I appreciate you asking that. Fees are difficult, right, Pat? Because
I think, I don't speak specifically about what she just asked about. Of course, Metro is a little bit different situation. We have the Nashville Electric Service, which, by the way, pays an in lieu of tax bill every year. They don't pay property taxes, but they do pay a certain payment for that that's fairly large that takes care of an in lieu of tax. I don't know how you'd be able to set that up. It is possible. They may have to take state legislation because NES was set up under state law back when it was first formed back in TVA, early TVA New Deal days, back in the late 30s, early 40s. That would be one way to do that. But if you go back and look, the mayor mentioned he didn't give a specific number, but there have been a number of bills I've watched go through the council just recently that have raised different fees and things like that. And he gave a number for how much more money, generally in fees, they have already gotten out of there. So there's that sort of indicated to me they'd already gone through everywhere they thought they could right now and looked through the sofa cushions and shook the piggy bank and did everything else to find a little extra money. I'm not saying there's not more of them they won't do, but trust me, if they're ready to do it, I'm sure the council will be ready to put those bills in right away and get them through the council on 3 readings between now and the end of July.
there's a line here, new revenue sources, increase in convention center authority, a memorandum of understanding, pilots, and then fees.
And pilot is the payment in lieu of taxes.
Yeah,
that's what that acronym
and that's a
means.
$64 million revenue increase, revenue source. Those three things together.
Yeah, the water department pays that too, and they increased that just. Of course, they also had to increase their rates as well, but they increased that just in the last few months. In fact, some council members didn't pick up on that when it went through in terms of their in lieu of tax payment. There are other in lieu of tax payment, and I think you'll see them looking for more of that, but I don't know if they can get those negotiated and put into place between now and the end of June.
Some fees you have to get authority permission from the state. And the state is going to have its own set of problems. I mean, that was an interesting question from Joe about raising the gasoline tax. That the state may be facing a similar situation and have to come up with all kinds of revenue. And they'll be thinking about these same sorts of things.
Well, it'll be interesting to see what happens with the state. The state does have a pretty healthy rainy day fund, and they talk about it quite a bit and take pride in it, and they should. Metro is going to establish a rainy day fund with this budget under Mayor Cooper, but they're starting it out with $5 million. That's a very small down payment to get started, and it may be one of those, depending on what the council does, where you can't get into that without special action by the council. Right now, the reserves have been something that Metro has helped, and as the mayor said, I think this is the first time in a number of years they're not appropriating fund balance in order to pay for next year. Of course, one reason they're not appropriating any fund balance is after they got through paying all the bills just to get through the rest of this quarter, they didn't have any fund balance left. They had to spend all the fund balance just to help balance the books.
When Bob Mendez was on last week, he said Metro came into this with the lowest rainy day fund of any major city. So rainy day fund certainly has been a weak spot here. All right, we're going to take a break. If you're on the line, hold on. If you want to call in, there's the number, 615-737-PLUS, 615-737-7587. We will take a break. Be back right after this.